And we are live. Hello, everybody. It's so good to have you with us today. And today we're live streaming from my page. So we're going to give you a little bit of teasing as to what's happening in the relationship transformation group. But I wanted to share Karen because she's so incredible with all of you. And she's over in the relationship transformation group. But we're going to hear all about Karen in just a minute. But today you're here because if you want more intimacy in your relationship. So today's Facebook Live interview with Karen Fitzgerald is More Intimacy Now, the Healing Power of Tantra. This is for couples and singles that want more intimacy in their relationship. So let's welcome Karen. I'm going to share a little bit about Karen. She's got an amazing, amazing background, and she comes with a wealth of knowledge and information about the healing powers of Tantra, as well as she's a communications coach, and she's also a certified Tantra educator. An essential part of intimacy is communication, and we do this through our voice and our words, in how we speak, and through our bodies. So Tantra provides a way for us to experience a deeper connection with one another through both. Let's welcome Karen. Thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your busy schedule and to grace us with your wisdom today. I'm just thrilled to have this conversation with you.
Thanks, Danielle. I'm glad to be here. Always love this conversation because I feel the world is hungry for it. And we don't know how to approach intimacy, not very often. So, I'm glad you brought this forward, and we'll see what happens,
Oh, I know a lot's going to happen. If Karen's in the house, we know things are going to happen, everybody. So a big question we have is, what does it truly mean to be intimate with your partner or future partner, mind, body, spirit? Because that's a big one. People want that, but it's a lot.
It is a lot. Well, first of all, talking about the communication piece, I think we've not been taught. I think I'm going to start with we've not been taught, okay, how to really be present for another human being, how to communicate our desires, our needs, our wants, both women and men. And we've not been taught how to do that in a way that's honest and open, but kind, but real. Right. And because
That's true.
Right. Because we dodge it and we get kind of passive aggressive about it, or, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, instead of not blaming anybody, but like, what do I need? And it starts with us. It starts with our own communication with ourselves. Like, what do I need in terms of touch, in terms of the bedroom, in terms of communication? What do I need? And half the time we don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know. And as women, I would say as women, we've not been taught. I would say as women, we've not even been really taught to look at it very often. We're getting more so in the conversation, but not been taught to look at it very often. And men might be the same way as well.
Yeah. And I think it does come across, like you touched upon in what you just said, is demands sometimes, or we just don't speak at all.
Right.
Or we kind of just fake it.
Yes. Okay. So for any guys who are listening to this thing, okay. I know I'm older than Danielle is, and so I may have it a little bit different, but I don't think
it doesn't look it. So don't let her fool you.
Thank you. I may have it a little off, but not so much. So women have been taught, generationally speaking, women have been taught that the man will know. Okay, the man will know what to do to turn us on. Man's going to know what to do. And if he doesn't do it correctly, don't say anything because you'll hurt his ego. Okay. And if you hurt it, then, and the whole point in history has been the man's pleasure comes first. If the man gets his pleasure, that's great. And if the woman does, well, that's nice too, but that's off to the side. And the reason is because we're very different. Well, there's a lot of reasons. Historically, there's a lot of reasons. But underneath it all, women's sexuality is very different than men, and women's needs are very different than men. And we don't talk about it. We don't, our parents, when did your parents talk to you about sex in a healthy way? I'm just asking that question.
My mother explained it to me when I was 5 years old. believe it or not. It's a
All
little
right.
crazy.
It's a little nuts.
I had no idea what she was talking about. He clearly was not audience appropriate.
That's great. That's great. Well, my mother, when I was 12 and I got my period, my mother gave me a book on cows and chickens. The-
God,
and then
Karen,
So you got it at 5, I got it at 12 about cows and chickens. And then in the end, there were 2 stick people, like a man and a woman, coming, not even together. I don't even know what they were doing. And I looked at that and I went, well, I know what cows and chickens do now. It had no, and we did not talk about it. We did not talk about it. And part of it really has to do with religion. I was raised Catholic. And sex was dirty. Now my parents were very affectionate with each other, so I could see affection, but you didn't talk about it. You didn't ever talk about it. And in the Catholic tradition and most religions, you start looking at the major religions in the world, and women's sexuality is either really downplayed or it's dirty or scary. Women's lust is scary, and there's reasons for that, but not reasons to be scared of it. Reasons to know that women have a very powerful sexual nature, and we've buried it, and we've buried it.
and I want to dive into that because I think that's important for both men and women to understand.
Yeah, it's we've been taught, and I'm going to call it a patriarchal culture, though I'm not blaming any men for any of this. It's just sort of come down through history, but we have been taught that the way to do it is to please the man first. Okay. And that's not saying anything's wrong. What it is saying is that it's actually the reverse. And actually, some of the Hindu traditions, which is where Tantra came from the Far East, ancient, like 5,000 years old, came from the Hindu traditions and the Taoist traditions of the Far East. And I actually spoke to one of the guys that I was in Tantra with, and he was Hindu. And he was saying that the man's role was to learn how to pleasure a woman first, because when you learn how to pleasure a woman, you make the woman very happy. Then she becomes ignited. Her sexuality becomes ignited. And then she wants to fully engage with the man. That makes him happy. Then the children are happy. Then the community is happy. I mean, he went through this whole description about why it was important for men to learn, because women take longer to ignite. Okay. Most of us we need touch because of the way our sexual organs are. We need, and there's different categories of what people need, but women need touch. They need soft approach before a man would even enter her. And in fact, one of the experts on this, Sherry Winston, who's written a wonderful book. She's written, so I'll name some books as we go through this. Women's Anatomy of Arousal by Sherry Winston. And she talks to women, but she also talks to men in that book. It's really a lovely book to read. And what she says is that women need 45 minutes of affection and foreplay and creating safety before a man even enters her. Right? Now, that's not the case for every woman. Okay, so don't put yourself in a particular category, but generally speaking, women need to feel safe. They need to feel trust, and they need time. And as you get a woman's body ready, she starts to ignite, and then the sex, and it's through kissing. I mean, Tantra gets into all of this, but it's listening to each other's bodies. That's where the communication piece comes in. It's really, as you start to slow down, and there's all these techniques within Tantra, as you start to slow down and really see each other and really start to talk to each other, you start to feel into each other's bodies. And as you do that, you can start to really create a whole different lovemaking experience.
And that's where you're really tying in, Karen, the body, mind, and spirit.
Exactly. Because people, I think I told you this when we were talking about this. I taught a class with a friend of mine, and she really wanted me to get into some of this stuff. And she's done some heavy duty therapy with some people in the recovery world. And so we called it Sexuality and Spirituality, the workshop. And a woman wrote back to her and she said, "How dare you put those 2 words in the same sentence?" And And I get it. I get it, because we have separated them out. As a culture, we've separated them out.
Yes, we have.
Truth is, sexuality, sexuality, yes, it's about procreation and so much more, but through pleasure, every soul is brought into this human existence through a woman's yoni.
Right.
Yoni being the woman's vagina, whatever word. There's another word I would use, but I don't know if Facebook would kick us off. So anyway,
Right. They're probably watching closely.
that's right. That's right. So we're going to use the word yoni for that most sacred part of a woman's body. And I believe in Sanskrit, it's the sacred entrance. It's the sacred entrance. But every soul comes into this world. So our sexuality, it's our life force. It's the very divine life force. And we don't honor it that way. We don't realize it's been taken out of context over.
Why do you think why do you think it has been taken out of context? Because that's a good point you make.
I believe, again, because of the way religions were run,
Yeah.
that there was a lot of the way religions were run, that there was a lot of fear around women's sexual power and women's sexuality. And so you vilify it, and you vilify that connection between man and woman, unless it's for procreation, it's not for anything else. Right. And we've been taught that it's dirty, but you save it for the one you love in marriage. Right. I mean, come on, folks. You know, and that lust is one of the 7 deadly sins.
Right.
Lust
Right.
is one of the 7 deadly sins.
So
And
if we shame people enough into submission, then it actually really drives right into our biological needs, right? And our sense of belonging. So now we're outcasted, which is a huge, fear-inducing agent in our survival.
Exactly. And women who were free with their sexuality have been throughout history horribly condemned.
Right.
And it's
to death through,
Hmm?
right? Even to death in some.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I believe, as we awaken in consciousness, because it is a consciousness thing, as we start to awaken, all of that is shifting, and the importance of a woman's sexuality, the sacredness of it, is becoming more to the forefront. And also it's important because we crave human connection, and we are so separate now. We are so disconnected from each other. We're afraid of each other. Women are afraid of men are afraid of women, the whole thing. We're so afraid of each other. So, and we hunger. There's so much loneliness in the culture and so much desire for intimacy, and we don't know how to do it. And we just don't know how to do it.
Yeah. And that's, and one of the things that we touched upon as we were preparing for this is, what are we missing in this culture? And I think it is that what you're talking about, we're having frustrating sex,
Yeah.
but not deeply connected sex. Do you want to speak to that, Karen?
Yeah, I will. I will talk, first of all, and this may throw some people off, but
hey, we're here to grow. So these may be growing pains. Often when we feel a trigger, sometimes that's our growth edge. So go for it.
okay. All right. So I'm just going to talk about a couple things. One, and it's a big one, and I believe it's planted into the culture for a reason and not a particularly good one, is pornography. Pornography, and they're drawing younger boys into it deeper and deeper and sooner. And it literally changes the neurological pathways in our minds. But what it does is, it turns a guy on, right? He watches it, and after a fairly short period of time, he can get addicted to it. Get addicted to the fantasy of it, get addicted to the images, get addicted to the masturbation that goes with it. And so, and it comes out of a desire to learn. I don't know how to do sex. I don't know how to do sex. So maybe this will tell me how to do sex. But what it does,
there's no rite of passage in our culture. There's no in many cultures, there was a rite of passage into adulthood and into womanhood. So,
well, and in fact, in some ancient cultures, what would happen, tribal cultures, is that, and I heard this and I thought this was great, they would bring older women in the tribe, would bring in younger men, and they would teach them the
Beautiful.
ways of woman, so that when he married a younger woman, he would be able to satisfy her and they would have a lively sex life. The older woman certainly was enjoying this moment,
Yeah.
but right, everybody benefits from it. Everybody benefits from it. And now what's happened is we isolate it all out. Men are watching, men and women watch pornography. I get that. Some of the statistics are that 4 times more men than women watch it. It's pretty easy to get addicted to it. And then what happens is, and I've talked to men about this through some of the practices I've done through Tantra and some of the other practices. What they say is after a while, you don't know how to relate to a woman. First of all, she doesn't have that ideal fantasy body that's in porn. Okay, so why would I want to touch that? She's a little round, or she's a little this or a little that. So there's all of a sudden, it's not perfect. And also, in the fantasy of pornography, you don't have to deal with the messy issues that come up in a real relationship.
Yeah.
The conversations, the communication, and everything that we do now is on TikTok and is on, the internet, and and so we're disconnected that way.
Yeah.
And with women, there's a lot of fear. You had the Me Too movement, a lot of which was legit, and some of it, I think, went overboard in terms of, he looked at me the wrong way. So therefore, and so men become more scared of women. Women are scared of men anyway. And so this disconnect is just profound. And so when we would come into Tantra classes, I'll just give you an example of a couple things. So we'd come in, and these are people, I needed to heal from some very complex things. I was married for 25 years in a very rejecting marriage. I won't go into the whole story, but I was rejected a lot, physically, emotionally, mentally, all of that. We both came from really troubled backgrounds. And I went for therapy and I went for help, and he refused. Okay, so that's as far as we get. So I entered a woman's pleasure program in New York City, uh, which was profound. And it gave women permission to explore their sexuality. And the women were studying Tantra. We were studying various orgasmic meditation, all kinds of things. And so we were learning. So I go into a beginner Tantra class, and they do exercises called pujas. And it's very PG. I mean, it's very PG. But you would stand, so they'd have a circle of women, maybe 8 women in a circle. And then on the outer circle, they'd have 8 men. And you would be paired up, and you would go around the circle doing these little exercises. So maybe the first exercise would be to look at the man. So I'm talking men and women now. You could do this with same genders. You could do it, with your partner, all of that. So, but you're looking at this person opposite you, and you're just doing eye contact for 1 minute, left eye to left eye. So that doesn't get all confused about where do I look?
Yeah.
Left eye to left eye. And you would just be looking at each other and trying to see. First, you giggle, people giggle, and then they get all nervous because we don't look at each other, right? And then as you go deeper, you get beyond the giggling or the discomfort, and you just start to see, you may see a tear in the other person's eye, or you may see some kind of vulnerability. But suddenly this person becomes more real to you and more human. Okay. So that's a beginning. Then after a minute, you say thank you to the person, and then the teacher guides you and you switch to another person. And you might do an exercise now where you're actually touching the person in the middle of their chest. Okay. Women give permission to the men if they want to, or she can put her hand here and he can put his hand on top, okay, to create some safety. And she puts his hand on his. And then they just look at each other and start to synchronize their breathing. They just start to breathe together and look at each other. And I'm telling you, as you do a series of these going around a circle, you start to connect with people in a different way. And that's a very beginning, basic moment of Tantra. But we don't do that with our partners. We don't do that in our house. We don't hold our partner. You can take your partner as you're leaving the house in the morning. Take your partner put your hand, on their back, like in the center of their back where their heart might be, the back of their heart, and just hold them and say, I'm gonna miss you today. I'm gonna miss you today. Or I really loved having dinner with you last night. Something of appreciation, or thank you for being such a good parent. You know, anything of appreciation and respect. It's so simple to begin, and we don't, because we don't know,
If we don't know. Yeah.
because we don't know, right? So those are just some, I just wanted to sort of move into that a little bit.
Yeah, I really feel like it also dropped us into the conversation. Like I feel much more dropped in just you talking through those exercises. I do have a question. What do you tell people because of some people's upbringing, childhoods?
Mhm.
Some people have a really hard time. I know some people that I've worked with maintaining that eye contact.
Mhm.
Um, what are ways to ease them into that if they are having a hard time and their nervous systems are having a hard time with that eye contact?
First of all, you could start them more slow, like shorter. Okay. So
Yeah.
just you could say to them, see if you can hold it for 10 seconds. Okay. Just see if you can hold it for 10 seconds. The other thing that you can do is there's exercises that you can do in a room, and I've got my hands here, and you
Mm.
could have a person's, let's say they can't look you right in the eye, but you could have them put their hands out, and then just like, let's say it's a woman and a man here, or your partner, whatever. You put your hands out and you let the other person place
Put
their
their hands down.
hands in yours, and just hold hands, not even hold hands, but just hold palms, and connect that way. And then just glance up and look at that person, and then look down again,
It's
and
good.
then try to do it again. So it's a little glance. It's like a little shy kid, uh, just bringing the eyes up for a moment. Okay, just bringing the eyes up for a moment, because that is a beginning of helping. It's a beginning of helping. And I spoke to a therapist about this, a very good therapist who I know very well. She's a good friend of mine. And I told her some of this, and she said some people can't do it for more than 15 seconds. She
Yeah.
said it's just really hard for them. So yeah, I mean, we would do it for a minute in the tantra room, and some people's eyes were like, this, and had a very hard time. So if you can do it even for 10 seconds, that's a great way to begin. And
That's
to
a
just
great suggestion because I
yeah,
have worked with people just based on their nervous systems. They're not ready. So, what this does is it really helps them to slowly expand their capacity for that.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, Karen, what would you say when either it's trauma based, right? That women have experienced trauma and they have no desire to give pleasure, or if they just have no desire to give pleasure to a man. How do we navigate that?
It was interesting. I had an experience with this myself, having coming out of the marriage that I was in. So um, I was taught by my very advanced pleasure teachers that in that instance, first of all, a woman needs to receive first, and she needs to receive a lot of attention before she's even willing to do that. Now, is there any man willing to do that? Actually, what wound up
Hey
happening,
guys, how
right?
do you feel? There are men, and there are men that absolutely enjoy overabundance of giving. That
Exactly. Exactly. Because men, it's built into their system. Men love to be heroes. And
Mm.
a great way for a man to be a hero, which I watched in these Tantra classes. So, our teacher, I went to a gentleman named Charles Muir. He's my master teacher. He's very well known in the United States. And what he would do, so we would do a beginner weekend. Okay. And in the weekend, the Friday night, we would talk a lot. He would teach us. Then we would do some of those circular pujas, which we would do those exercises. And we'd have and then we had a circle at the end of the night and just conversations, men and women in the circle about why you're here, what you want to heal, all that kind of thing. So we would do that. The next day, there was more of that, some yoga movement, some simple yoga movement. And then he would take the men off. And I'm talking about men now, but also women. There's a counterpoint to this with women. So he would take the men off and for several hours teach them these issues about a woman's body and how to serve a woman. And he would teach them massage techniques. He would teach them how to do internal massage techniques, what they call sacred spot massage. And he would say to the men, you're going to be here. And we got to practice this with these men later in the weekend. But he would say to them, you're going to come in as the healer and the hero. So when you do this whole body massage for this woman, you are not to this is not to get some for yourself. Okay. You are not to ask her to kiss you. You are not to ask her for a date. You are not to ask her to have sex with you afterwards so that you can get yours. Okay. This one is for her. And you're going to go in. Now, she may have, because of trauma in the body, she may cry. She may laugh. She may be furious and start yelling at you. It's not about you. She's carrying trauma in the body, and all you are doing is helping her to release this by your touch and your attention and your care. Okay, so he would teach the men this. And of course, you get more mastery. I mean, several of us went on for the program, the mastery program. But this was the beginning, a beginner's weekend. And then the women are in another room with a female teacher. And she is teaching us how to receive this and also how to voice, like he's supposed to ask permission. May I touch your breasts? You get to say no if you're uncomfortable because you're finding your voice. So for women, frequently it's about finding your voice. Okay. So, and that's part of the communication thing. May I touch your breasts? May I touch your buttocks? And she, at any point, she can say no. But if you're doing it and she allows you to go through with it, then the two of you, and you connect through eye contact during this whole time. And frequently, as the woman, you want to keep your eyes shut, which you do for a while. I mean, you have to. But then he invites you to reconnect and to breathe with him. Okay, just keep breathing. Okay. And the men come in as healers, allowing the woman to feel pleasure or the discomfort of release or whatever happens. It becomes a very healing session between the two of them. Now, if a woman has had trauma and if a woman goes to one of these sessions and she's not been to therapy, she has not been to a therapist who focuses on the body, okay, I would advise that for most people. If you have real trauma, go to a sex therapist, a good sex therapist that can be very helpful, an embodiment therapist. But also, I've seen great healing go on with a good practitioner in Tantra sessions that has been really remarkable to watch. Remarkable to watch. But there are men, and one of them he came over to practice some of these techniques with me, and he was a much younger guy. And, and he said, would you guide me? And I said, yes. And, I'm in teacher training, and I guided him. And he was great, very appropriate. I am naked, and he is wearing like yoga pants or something, doesn't take his pants off. He is clothed. And this is how it goes with permissions. Anyway, he asked to come again, and then we did it again, and then another time. And finally, appropriately, at some point after the whole session was over, after we were all done, he said to me, probably the third or fourth time he came into my house, he said, can I kiss you? And I thought about it and I said, yes, you can. Well, that led to eventually, we had a 1.5 year romantic relationship. And he was a man who loved to give pleasure. He got pleasure from giving pleasure. And because he was so much younger, I kept trying to end it all the time. And I had a very intuitive friend of mine in the Tantra world who said to me, he's a healer for you and you're not letting him into your heart. Let him come and heal you. And he did in very many ways. So there are men who are very, and that's a long explanation, I know, but there are men who are capable of doing this, and also women, because when we reverse it, and we did learn to reverse it, like I could give that kind of a session to a man. And when you learn to reverse it, men often struggle with receiving
Yes.
because they're not used to it. They're used to being told they have to give, they have to give, they have to give. You know, it's not just that men are takers, because they're not. They're as complex as we are, and in some of the same ways and some different ways. But men, sometimes it's poignant to be in a room where you're watching the men, and the wife said, or the woman or the partner said, I gave to him, you know, I did the session with him, and he cried because he couldn't receive it. It was so hard for him. So it goes both ways. It absolutely goes both ways. So yeah, there's probably more
Yeah.
detail
So
than we needed.
no,
Yeah,
that was great. That was great, Karen, because what I really gathered from that is it taps into the man's vulnerability of receiving.
exactly.
And the woman, I'm hearing, when she isn't having desire to give pleasure to the man, it's that she doesn't feel full yet. So that's why she needs to keep receiving and receiving until she's full up to be ignited. I like how when we were prepping for this, you said ignited, and then, wants to engulf the man. She's so turned on.
Well,
You predicted it.
thank you for bringing it back to that, because I kind of went off there for a minute. But yes, what happened with this much younger guy is he was offering me so much pleasure in my body. And at some and I had not had an interest. I had different people offering that, you know, tantra practitioners or whatever. He was so generous and really loved it. I mean, he was so generous with me and giving to me that at some point I got so ignited, like I wanted to give to him. I wanted to pleasure him. I was exploring ways. I was saying, what do you need? What do you want? And that was enormously healing for me. And I think for him as well. But it was just like, oh, like this is what they're talking about. You ignite a woman and you get her on fire. And then she's like, ah, you know, but
Yes.
that's the point of a man helping a woman with that first. And sometimes it takes a while. It did me, you know. Um,
And every woman's on her own timing, right?
exactly. And some women are like, yeah, okay, let's go. You know, but it's
And
it's
that's okay too. Yeah, they're just
it's
everybody
great.
has their own, and I think of like when you use that image, like when you share that, it reminds me of this butterfly, like coming out of the cocoon and then she's all there,
Oh,
right?
exactly.
She's like
Full color.
flapping her wings.
Exactly, totally. Full color. I mean, it is to watch, to experience that as a woman is profound. And I am still in connection with this guy. He actually, I mean, he broke it off. He was much younger. He was started dating somebody else. And he was very open and honest about it. It was great. And we're still in connection with each other, but I consider him a hero in my life,
Hmm.
a hero and a healer. I mean, he did it. He created total safety, total trust, and really upheld that, like enormous integrity. And I kept trying, like I said, I kept trying to break it off because he was so much younger, and he would not let me. He would challenge me on it. It's not like he forced me, but he would challenge me. Like, really, Karen? Really? You're gonna end this? Why? You know. Um, so it is the power of a man when he can step into that role. It's beyond beautiful.
And you start healing each other.
And you start healing each other, because then men often wonder, well, why doesn't she want more sex? Why does she shut off? Frequently it's because she doesn't know how to, we don't know how to negotiate it. We don't know how to ask for what we need, that we don't get what we need. And then we just go, well, this isn't satisfying me anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. Instead of going deeper to try to discover each other and try to discover what we really need.
Because, and even in the case, I know this isn't one of the things we spoke about, but I'm just curious because a lot of people, especially my singles, will say, well, I have to have chemistry. And it's a really interesting topic because in your case, being paired up in a Tantra workshop and training, there probably wasn't chemistry for either one of you in the beginning. And
Yeah.
so, what is your take on chemistry? I think this is really important because it's such a unstudied topic in so many ways. Like scientists still don't know exactly how to define this. And some people think that if you don't have chemistry from the get-go, it's not there. Well, Karen, you're living proof of your story that chemistry wasn't there. However, chemistry was created. So can you speak to at least maybe some of that?
And I'm not a scientist on it, so but I will speak to it. First of all, I was listening to it, a really powerful tantra teacher on a podcast the other day, and she was saying, which she's discovered in all the teaching that she's done, is that if it's really intense chemistry, you probably want to run in the other direction. Because, and I heard this really from a therapist who was part of the pleasure school that I was connected to, right? And she said, because we had a conversation, well, she would teach the whole room this. She said, if it's that intense chemistry, chances are it is something that feels very comfortable to you and it frequently comes from a wound that you had from your childhood. All right. And you just, like, my father was an alcoholic. Okay. And he got recovery, but he was a very serious alcoholic for a very long time. And so what was I attracted to? Addicts. All right. Like that. Okay. And there's a chemistry, there's a spark.
The
And
familiar
so
origin.
right. And you don't realize that because it's all subconscious. Okay. And as you start to work on that, you start to heal, you start to recognize it, and you start to heal it. And that's a whole other conversation right there. What this Tantra podcast, which he was talking about, is that yes, you want some connection, some, like with this young guy, we wound up in one of those circles together. That's how we first connected. And we did eye contact with each other. And he said to me later, and I said the same thing to him, he said, you had kind eyes. I was approachable, right? And he was approachable. And that was it. So that was the beginning. The other, the chemistry was not there at all. He was 2 inches taller than me. I like a guy who's, I'm like 5'6", so I like a guy who's 5'10" or taller. I like a guy who's more broad shouldered. I like, all this kind of stuff. You get the list, right? And if he was like he was 2 inches taller than me. He was very thin, and he was very aware of that. Like, he wasn't happy about that. He was very thin. But he created an enormous amount of safety and trust. And it was through, this is the thing about these kinds of classes. It was through his touch and his integrity and the safety that he created, but it was through his touch and the trust he created with that I started to connect with him. I started to connect with him. And through the communication, I mean, from the moment, because we're both studying this stuff, I was more ahead of it than he was. But he would also say, I want feedback from you. I want you to tell me if something's not working. I want you to tell me. So the two of us created this, and I was very careful about that. So if he did something that I didn't really love, I'd say, oh, let's shift. Let's do something different. And then at the end of the evening, I would say, you know what, when we did this thing, that wasn't it so much. But I complimented him, and I made sure I appreciated him at any point. That was real. But the thing about chemistry was that the chemistry built through the touch, through the safety, and through the conversation. And we don't allow it. We don't take time for it. We don't allow it in general meeting. You go to a bar, you meet somebody, and you go home with them, and it's like, you don't know this person, and you're going to jump in the sack with them. I would rethink that, and that's just a beginning. I mean, the chemistry thing is a big question for a lot of people. I just felt like a warmth from him. I just felt warmth. That was it,
What I'm really hearing too, Karen, is that you shared like values of kindness.
Oh, yeah.
because he saw that strength in you, and
Mm.
I'll call it strength, character strength.
Right?
And you saw that strength in him.
Right.
And then with the trust that was built and the communication, it sounds like, and that's really important what you're saying, because it means that we actually can have chemistry in our strengths,
Right.
because that's something you valued. Our strengths, our character strengths are what we value.
Yeah.
So you valued kindness in him, and he valued kindness in you. And that became the turn on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't even like an ignition. It was just like, okay, I trust you enough to try this thing. Right. That was it. That was it. It was that simple. And and we were studying it. So there's a way. Yeah. Yeah. Part of it. And again, I have to say, creating safety for each other. Now, I say it like the men should create safety for women, but also for women. When I said, like, if you're in relationship with somebody or you're starting a relationship with somebody, to appreciate things about him that you can appreciate. Okay. So let's say it's fairly new, but he does something nice, or he kisses you and you like that. You go, oh, I really like the way you kiss, or I really like the way you touched my arm when we walked out of the room. Whatever it is, so that we're always operating, not lying, but operating out of appreciation. So you're building confidence in the other person. You're building a mutual respect and a mutual confidence in each other, so that you can start to go more deeply into the relationship. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And it really is backed by my positive psychology training. So it's that, appreciation. Well, there's a lot of research out there, but appreciation is why people to stay together, even if it's satisfactory. Now, I'm not saying let's go for a satisfactory
Right.
relationship. That's why people will stay together. Also, appreciation and gratitude is the gateway to all other positive emotions, joy, inspiration, love. So yes, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
there, and I don't know if they taught this in positive psychology, but there's what they call the appreciation sandwich. Okay. So let's say that you would like your lover to do something a little different for you. Okay. Sexually. Okay. First, appreciate something that they've done. Okay. It could be, like I said, it could be the way you kissed me. It could be, I so appreciated the way you made dinner tonight, right? It could be anything, but real true appreciation. And then in between, you'd say, and you know what? Tonight, I would like you to come into the bedroom and touch me this way. Doesn't, you make your suggestion, whatever it is. So it's a new suggestion, it's a new or a change or a twist in how you want to see something done. But you appreciate first, you make the request, and then you appreciate after the request. So, and I so appreciate your willingness to try this with me. Right. So what you're doing all the time is you're building upon not negativity, but positivity
Yes.
and truth. I mean, always truth. And that takes some practice to learn how to do that. But I actually learned that from a very veteran oming teacher.
Ah,
Yeah. And oming is orgasmic meditation, and that's a whole other thing.
that's a whole other thing, but that's beautiful. That's like, I love that. An appreciation sandwich. So it's appreciation, request, appreciation.
Exactly.
So that in all the moments, and catching it in the moment is another practice, right? Being able to appreciate in the moment actually has been shown to increase the value of the gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
Because when we're calling it in the moment, it draws us together. And the more specific we can be, even more so. So I love this idea of an appreciation sandwich, because it's not often when we are dissatisfied with something, we go after the dissatisfaction versus being able to, like Karen said, make a request, first appreciate, then make a request of how you'd like the nuance to shift, right? Or show up differently. And then we appreciate that willingness, that openness in that request of
Exactly.
accommodating that request.
Exactly. And one of the ways you can do that, let's say you're in the midst of some very hot lovemaking. Okay. Um, one of the things we learn in Tantra, and this is really hard for a lot of people, is to make sound and not fake sound, not fake sound, but just practice it a little bit. Like if you really like something that your partner is doing, allow yourself to moan or allow yourself to even go, oh, yes. It doesn't have to be a big conversation, nor do you want it to be necessarily, but it's like, or, like they're touching a certain spot and you go, one guy touched me with a feather. I won't get into the whole detail, but he touched me with a feather in the crease between my yoni and the top of my thigh, right? And he just put a feather there and I went, oh. And I did say that. I said, it's amazing. I've never felt that before. But express, and you may like laugh in joy, it's all good, but it's like, let the person know in that moment, you could just say, love that. Like, ooh, do that again, whatever.
Right.
Right. Right. But it's those, we don't even know how to sound. And sometimes it's just a sound. Sometimes it's a moan. Sometimes it's, you know,
Sometimes it's, oh God.
sometimes it's, oh God, sometimes, oh
God
God.
always gets involved in the bedroom. That's another thing. God
It's
always
spiritual.
in the bedroom.
It is spiritual, right? But it's
I mean, the fact that we scream out in, oh God.
exactly.
I mean, it's funny, spirituality and sexuality, because we actually scream out, oh God, some of us.
Yes, yes, yes. And yay. I mean, it's but exactly, it's that allow it. Like
Yeah.
allow it, And there was another, I studied with a few Tantra teachers, one very specifically Charles Muir, but I went to weekends with some other ones. And one couple taught this for years. And it was funny. They were talking about breathing together. There's all kinds of techniques that you can learn. But they said sometimes, and they'd been together for many years and they were very happy, but they go, sometimes you just get bored, right? And sometimes you just get bored and it's okay. Like one or both of you may get bored, like it's just not happening, right? So she said, we came up with like something that we wanted to do to alert the other person, but not hurt their feelings. So they started doing the Jeopardy thing. Do 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 do. Right? So
Oh my God. I don't know. I think I might be pretty offended by the Jeopardy theme. If my partner all of a sudden started singing Jeopardy, I would be like mortified.
you would come to that together,
Absolutely.
whatever that thing is, or they got so comfortable with each other. They got so comfortable with each other. She would say to him, she'd say, you know what, I'm bored. You want to go for a pizza? but it's that you come to an agreement about what's okay for both of you. And then it's not this like you're trying and trying and it's not working, and then one of you gets frustrated, the other one gets mad, and it's um, you can laugh and you can have fun with it, and you can that I watched all of this happen. I mean, some of it happened to me, and I watched all of it happen in the mastery classes, and it was just beautiful and remarkable to see it in uh, you know and even during these beginner weekends we would practice the women would get to choose a guy if she wanted to go home and practice this massage technique I described for 90 minutes. We would come, and couples that came together, because we were all single, couples that came together, and there were a lot of them, would get a little bit different assignment. We'd all come in on Sunday morning and we would talk about what our experience was. And we were told to talk honestly about it. And for some of the singles, it was surprising and great. For some of it was like, it wasn't so great, but but you got honest, right? And you thanked the person. The the couples were fascinating because the couples would break through some pattern that they'd had forever. Like the man would say, I never went this slowly and knew that I could ignite her that way. Or
Mm.
she would say, or he would say, she cried and I held her and I cradled her in my arms. The men would feel so emotional and the women would too. Like she'd say, in the 20 years we were together, I have never been touched that way. It was so beautiful. You just could see breaking out of patterns, opening up, changing the way they communicated, and it's all possible for people.
Mm.
It's all possible. And the thing I think that you're trying to do, Danielle, with the relationship coaching is so
Mm.
important, because people need that third party sometimes to help them talk to each other in a way that they haven't been able to. And if you're single, because I know I'm talking a lot about partnership, but I've been single for years. So if you're single, how do we get in touch? And talking to Danielle too, like getting instruction about how to coach. How do we get in touch with ourselves about what we want in a relationship, what we want to feel? Today we're talking sexuality, but there's so many other things. What we want to feel in our bodies, how we want to be touched, and self-love, like practicing as an individual person. How do we love ourselves and how do we love our body so that we can allow another person into our lives? Because there's a
Mm.
lot of self-hatred going on and a lot of like, I don't want him to see me, or I don't want him to see me. I don't want her to see me in the light, or I'm too skinny, or, my sexual organs are not as beautiful as I'd like, all kinds of things. So there's a lot of self-love practices to do so that you love yourself first, or start that process of loving yourself first as you're allowing another person in.
Yeah, and I've even heard women, Karen, how they criticize their bodies, and having been in the holistic health field for 20 years, from exercise, nutrition, yoga, um, coaching, I actually encourage them to stop that,
To stop.
to stop the negative talk
Oh,
in its
right,
tracks,
right, right.
because it doesn't help you. It only increases cortisol. And I'll hear so many times, especially women, criticize their thighs, their butts, their stomachs, their breasts. Um, did I miss a part? I mean, their arms, like wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? And so it's, I actually encourage them to just stop the negative self-talk altogether. Like, just don't say that to yourself. Do
And
you have any other suggestions? Because that reinforcement over and over and over just erodes away. It's like saying it's the relationship with your body, right? Just like a relationship with a girlfriend. If I kept saying to you, Karen, your boobs are this way, your boobs are that way, or you kept saying to me, Danielle, your bum is this way, your bum is that way, over and over. How much do you think Karen and I would see each other or want to be friends? We'd probably hate each other.
right. No, it's an awful, again, it's such a cultural thing. It's just crazy. So few things that I would suggest. This first one comes from spiritual teacher who's no longer on the planet. Her name is Louise Hay. And
Oh,
she talked about doing mirror work. Okay.
mm.
She talked about doing mirror work. And first of all, and this is an eye contact thing, you look at yourself in the mirror and you say to yourself, I love you, Karen. I really love you. And I will tell you, people have such a hard time with that, such a hard time. But try that and do it every day for a while. Just do it as much as you can to that extent. You might be able to say it 5 times and that's it. and you might not feel it. But the other thing that you can do, and this came from pleasure training, okay, is first look in the mirror, or even before you look in the mirror, like I'm looking at my hand right now, right? I like my hands. So find a part of your body that you like, and you just say, I love you, hands. I really love you. I love you. I love the fingernail, whatever. I love you, hands. And go to different parts of your body that you like and do that. Then, after you've done that for a while, and you can even write an ode to that part of your body. You can write, you can write a poem, you could write a song, you could just write a little paragraph to it. Okay. So that's the beginning. Then you go to the parts that you don't like as well. Okay. For me, as I've gotten older, and I worked on this so much when I was younger, I'm in very physically great shape, right? But the one thing that happened to me as I got older is my belly would not go in. And I had a very flat belly for years. She's not going in anymore. She said, I'm done, and I struggle with it. But I look at her and then I caress her and I call her my womb. Call her my womb because, and some of you won't have this experience, but she is the creative life force. She is, it's the sexual part of your body. It's, you have what they call the second chakra, which is right below your belly and that whole area. So if you have given birth, which I have, that was the womb out of which I created two little human beings. All right.
Life. Oh my goodness, yes.
Created life, but we're all creating life because it's the creative center of your body. Okay, so whether you have a child or don't have a child, that's not the issue. The issue is it is connected to that which gives creativity to the world. Okay. And so you love your belly, or it might be your butt. You want a bigger butt, or you want a littler butt, or you want ever. Our Tantra teacher, I'm going to talk about the heaviness piece for a while because everybody's scared of being heavy, and what he said to the men, he said, you want to look for a woman with curves. He said, because they can become pillows. If she has a belly, if she has hips, if she has breasts, they can become pillows for you, right? And for those of us who are slim, it's like, how do you embrace? Because I was very slim for a very long time, a little less slim now, but it's how do you embrace the skin? How do you embrace the bones? The wonderful, like, look at those bones that Danielle has. Fabulous. Fabulous bones. I love my bones here. So it's how do you love these parts of your body, both that you like and that you don't like, and that you look in the mirror and you love them, and you say, "Oh, these hips are pillows," or "I love to grab them." Like grab your butt sometime and go, "Ooh, that's good," and you can experience that stuff with self-pleasuring as well.
I love that, Karen. I love the ode to your body. I love going to with the part that is easier for you to say you love first, and then inviting the parts that don't feel so lovable yet. And then the last one that you mentioned as well. Like those are all different tools that we can use to be able to access more self-love.
Exactly. And I will say this to men and to women, because men, I will tell you, I'm going to talk about the genitalia now for a moment. For the yoni, for the vagina, that area, a lot of women don't even self-pleasure because they're afraid of it, or they're too hesitant, or they're scared, or all kinds of things. I would invite you to just hold her at night and just touch her and touch her heart at the same time. And touch your heart at the same time because they're connected. It's the lower heart and the higher heart. And just breathe into them and say thank you. Just say thank you for whatever, but just touch her and feel her. And for men struggle with this about their penis, about the size of it. It's not big enough, or it's not this, or it's, I come too fast, or whatever. There's all men have as many issues as women. They're just a little different. And I would say the same things to them. I would say the same things about loving your body parts. I would say the same things about holding your penis and your heart at night and just honoring it and just thank it, you know. And I will say something that my female Tantra teacher told me. You know, a lot of men are afraid they're too small. She said, I love men who are small. I love having sex with men who are small. And she didn't go into a whole lot of detail because she was talking about a bunch of other things. So we have to let so much of this go.
Yeah.
So much of it go. And it's a process. It's
It
a
is.
process. Yeah. Yeah.
And Karen, there's one thing before we wrap up that this has just been probably the most grounded conversation and just so pleasurable in the back and forth and the flow. I feel like I'm in a trance right now. So if I'm looking drunk,
It's been a delight. And you've been such a great interviewer. You've been like, you know, yeah, I mean, just people are
uh,
lucky to have you. That's all I'm going to say.
oh,
Yeah.
likewise, my friend. I,
Thank
I
you.
just so appreciate you being here and really sharing this so desired and yearned for material that you're honoring in even how you're speaking about it. And um, one thing that I really want to touch upon as well before we wrap up is how do we give pleasure and receive pleasure at the same time? Because this is a really great question. I wanted to make sure we didn't forget about it.
Okay. And yeah. So let's just say, okay, so anybody watching, you can take your arm, okay? And so you're going to take your hand, let's just say, and you're going to touch. I don't know if I can explain it very well at the moment, but you're going to touch. So, first of all, feel with your hand, and you're touching your arm. Feel the touch on your hand. Like, what does it feel like on your hand to be touching skin, somebody else's skin, let's say. Okay. But allow yourself to feel that skin and to feel the pleasure. Let's go on the inside of the arm because it's a very soft part. Okay. It's a very soft part. And just go on the inside of the arm and start to stroke it. So you feel the tingling in your hand. So that's you. But this is the other person. Let's say this is the other person's skin. Feel the softness of their skin so that you can access pleasure in your hand as you're touching the softness of another person. Or you can feel the pleasure in your hand. When I have done these tantric massages for men, one of the things I do is I start at the top of their head. All right. Start at the top of their head. All right. And I just gently start to massage it. So he's feeling the pleasure of the massage, but I'm also feeling the pleasure of his hair or his stubble up there. Like, what does that feel like? Like, what does that feel like? To enjoy. So what you're doing is you're transmitting energy to each other. This whole thing is energetic. Okay. And I'm not explaining it as well as I'd like to, but
I think you're explaining it perfectly.
okay, if you can both feel it in your hand, but and you're giving them pleasure, but also feel that moment of softness of their hair, or that moment of softness, like I said, of the bald head, you know, like, oh, that feels so smooth. Oh my God, um, all of that. And I'm going to have you just experiment to just test your own pleasure center right now. That we have so many erotic centers on our bodies and we don't even, so you're going to circle around the center of your elbow. Don't do the middle of it. Just circle around it and start to tease yourself so that the center of your elbow wants to be like it's drawing you. The
Oh,
center,
I love
yeah,
that.
center
Oh
of your
my,
center of your elbow, it wants to get turned on. Like it's right. You have so many erotic parts
it's
of
so
your body,
true.
right? No, I mean, it could be
Wow.
wrist behind your knee. I mean, it's just the back of my neck. Oh my God. Oh my God. Right. And so, I mean, this is, we could go all over the place.
So
And
everybody go home tonight if you're single or if you have a partner and just,
experiment with this. Experiment
it
with this
really requires presence. That's what it's really
all
so
the time.
like in order to be able to receive and give pleasure at the same time, you have to be so present.
Exactly.
And don't judge yourself if your mind wanders, just gently guide it back.
That's right.
What am I feeling? What do I smell? Using your senses to guide you into the present moment. In
Exactly.
this case, touch.
Touch. And when you start breathing, if you're with a partner and you start breathing
Oh,
together, the breath starts to bring you back, synchronizing with each other, or eye contact, any of that. But yeah, how do you get back into the present moment and just not go off into some sort of routine, like you're thinking about 10,000 things and okay, I'll touch this person.
or
It really
is
is
she close
present.
to orgasming? Or, like not
Oh,
the
that's a
end.
whole other topic.
You might have to come back for that one. Is she orgasming is the next.
Here's the thing, if you can let go of the goal, and I'll just finish with that. You can let go of the goal of orgasm, like, is she orgasming? Is he orgasming? That, I mean, Tantra goes into all that stuff as well, but let go of the goal and just go for the ride. And if it doesn't end in an orgasm, I will tell you, I have taken the ride many times and not had an orgasm, but the ride was amazing.
The
And so,
ride may have been better sometimes than the orgasm itself, right?
exactly, exactly. Like just feeling all of that ignition in your body. Um, Try to let go of the goal, and that's a whole other exercise,
Yes.
but it's viable and it's helpful, you
Mm,
know. Yeah,
that's a good one.
yeah.
Nice way to wrap this up is letting go of the expectations to some women that have a harder time orgasming. That's Karen would be also. Karen, is that something that you work with as well with your clients?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we do a lot of what we've done here, essentially. We do a lot of this stuff, and I
That's
talk to them.
specific to your needs.
It's specific to your needs, and what are the things that are stopping you or hanging you up. And yeah, so we talk about all that. We talk about orgasm and about communicating with yourself. What is it that you want? What is it you desire? And then how do you also communicate with another human being? I mean, that's about all of these issues. But yeah, I coach, and yeah.
And how can people reach you, Karen? What's the best way?
People, probably the best way right now is to, I mean, I have a website, but probably the best way to make the initial contact is to DM me on Facebook. All right. And how do I do this on Facebook?
So, so what we can do is I'm going to tag Karen in the follow-up posting of this recording. So you can just go ahead and click on that and then friend Karen and then just DM Karen once she okays your friendship. So that
Again, and let me know you're from Danielle.
yes, there you go. That's right. Yeah, you can say I saw you. I'm Danielle on the Danielle's Facebook Live. I'd love to reach out. And Karen, I so appreciate you being here. This woman is just a wealth of wisdom and knowledge, not just knowledge. So
I'm fun.
oh, oh yeah. Oh yeah, if you couldn't tell. This is like this is like a happy hour without the alcohol.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, Karen, thank you so, so much. I will be posting this in the next 24 hours. So please, if you are wanting to spice your love life up a little bit or learn how to take it even deeper in connection, or if you're single and you want to get ready to, work through maybe some sexual issues, right? Karen's a great person for that. She has a huge coaching background, and she has a ton of training in the pleasure and Tantra world. So I can hands down say you are in safe hands. And she is so wise. If she feels that added support as a therapist is needed, she is able to recognize that. She recognizes trauma. She is one person I can put my hands behind and say, I trust her with my clients. So you are in great hands. Karen, thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to make sure that I turn off the live correctly so we don't lose the live. So just bear with me for a second as that I turn off the live correctly so we don't lose the live. So just bear with me for a second as that I turn off the live correctly so we don't lose the live. So just bear with me for a second.